Hi, we are back with our flagship content this time, the News with Analysis episode. We've picked four news pieces from the UAE that are interesting, and we thought of discussing that with you. HAYAH have launched an app called TRIBE by HAYAH. I personally like the whole UI. I think it was really good. It's an investment, come savings, and life and medical insurance app. HAYAH have always done a great job of branding and then look and feel. It's very clean, it's very tight, and I think they've translated that in app's experience as well. It flows very nicely. I think the app is predominantly a savings app. They're trying to promote healthy saving habits, how typically the banks have done, like Yap and Live, and they've used that whole gamification ways of breaking down your budget, setting financial goals, what are the areas you should focus on, and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting approach from HAYAH to get into this. I think we must invite Mohammed again and perhaps David as well to understand what is the whole long-term strategy into launching an app. Your thoughts, Renjit?
Yeah, insurance has always been lagging behind in terms of getting engagement from customers because, as we usually say, it's just at the time of policy issuance and time of claims. But now there's an interesting way of almost entering into the fintech space. And it's a very smart way of doing it because we do have insurance savings and growth products. And I didn't think that it could be done this way, that you can invest in those products through an insurance company, which is a no-brainer now that somebody has done it. But it's a great way of, and also I noticed that it has a PFM front end to it, so personal finance management, which a number of vendors and fintechs offer. So it's pretty easy for a company like HAYAH to make it a front end and gamify the whole process and attract their audience, which I think Mohammed said that Gen Z and millennials are their target audience. Another interesting thing is that UAE is trying to open up the end of service benefits, right? This could be a good way for employees to transfer the end of service benefits to an investment vehicle. So I think HAYAH is probably preparing for that as well. So I think it's a great idea overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've tied up obviously with one investment company, BlackRock, but they intend to have a lot of these individual financial advisors come on board as well onto the platform. So it's going to be a very, I think, ease of experience from a customer point of view to get into one app and get into this whole investment game in itself. So one more thing that I found quite interesting was they are going to introduce portfolios such as sustainable energy, fintech, and electric vehicle based projects, which consumers can choose to put their savings against. Now, again, that's very interesting because of the whole focus on ESG and sustainability, especially within this region after COP28. And of course, HAYAH and Mohammed were at Davos as well, talking about how they want to build in that whole focus around sustainability. So it's reflected into the app. So all in all, pretty good experience so far. The one thing that I found a little bit of an irritant is when I want to buy the plan, it takes you outside of the app and then you got to fill in your KYC details all over again. So I suppose it is still work in progress in some sense so that you can buy those products in app itself. So I don't have to fill my details all over again. But otherwise, I think, a great app to look into.
Yeah, that would have been a no-brainer, right? You are doing KYC with HAYAH, then why can't you transfer that data to BlackRock?
Exactly.
And it can be done. Yeah. So that's not bad. The other news piece was about how Sukoon and WAX Insurance have done a tie-up. So essentially, this is really, WAX Insurance is based in, I think, the US, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the policies it's an Insurtech and basically for insuring valuables. So there it's jewelry, art, baseball cards, that kind of stuff. Yeah, classic cars. So they're now here in the UAE. Basically, they're underwritten by Chubb. So they're an Insurtech. And essentially, I love their website. It says, when your dog uses your luxury handbag as a chew toy, we give you the option to repair or replace. So it's kind of stuff. It's not your standard stuff that is covered by home insurance, which doesn't have too much of a limit. And we know that Dubai and UAE has people who purchase expensive stuff. So that could be a good add-on insurance to purchase on home insurance. What do you think?
No, absolutely. I believe in this proposition, Renjit. I think we have been doing a similar project as well I think what this proposition tells us that if there is a market need and there's so much of variation you can bring within this whole market need itself. Wax, of course, is one way to do it, which is very much collectible an approach. There are many more approaches that can be done within this whole domain of luxury itself. So also a shout out to a lot of insurers and reinsurers to reimagine the region, reimagine the risks that they think is very peculiar to the Middle East. It is not. I think they got to look at risks from every geography and in every country perspective and not always benchmarking the US market and the European market. I think this sort of does a resounding validation of the market need. And the fact that Sukoon had to go to a wax insurance and bring them here also says that maybe they have tried locally as well to do this and therefore they had to really get a US based company to come on board. Now, I had the opportunity to download the Wax app.
Yeah.
It's again very easy to use. It's a very clean app, but just to make sure that you get a code, you got to go through a whole bunch of KYC details. I'm just looking at the app now and I'm going through it. So it gives you a list of things that you want to insure, but you got to have obviously the value of what you want to insure and so on and so forth. But you got to have a couple of documents in hand before you get a quote. So it's pretty authentic. So you can't just do this whole quote shopping sort of a thing. You got to have all of these documents, and I'm sure there is a back end check of these documents as well. So things like your appraisal document, your bill of sale document, taking photos, and you got to take photos in different angles. It's just not a static sort of photo. So there is a way to read that it's a real product that you're holding in hand and so on and so forth. So it's a great use case of how an Insurtech can collaborate with a giant insurance company to bring together a product that's fit for purpose for a certain specific need.
Yeah, for sure. So I think their website says just download the app and take a photo and get a quote and check out. From your experience, it doesn't seem to be that straightforward, but interesting. But what I like is they've got sneakers covered, and we know some of these sneakers are pretty expensive, right? And this region does purchase high value stuff, right? Got memorabilia, it's got comics. I've got some not very old comics down there in the library. So that's interesting. And art and watches. So it does cover a number of things if you look at the website. And I also like that it's not just about insurance. They're offering vaulting. So I think they're talking about storing some of this stuff safely in their vaults and also appraisals. So somebody can come and take a look at your stuff, and the value of these products grow year over year. And you can't just rely on the invoice value of a baseball card or a memorabilia, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense. Very interesting. Be very good to see how they progress here in the Middle East.
Yeah, and how they promote it here in the Middle East for sure.
Yeah.
Great. On to the next one is the study that we found quite interesting, right? This is the Cigna's healthcare vitality study. Cigna, as you all know, is a big health insurer here in the Middle East as well and globally. Now, they conducted this global survey where they, I think, asked about 10,000 respondents about various aspects of life. So it was just not physical health or mental health, but it was just a holistic outlook to vitality itself. So there are aspects around your social life, your occupational, financial, intellectual, physical, spiritual, emotional, environmental. So about 8 aspects of well-being, and they have scored the respondents and scored it by country-wise. And apparently UAE and Saudi have one of the highest vitality scores. So, that what that means, Renjit, is that we have a great work-life balance. Apparently, we have a great social lives. We are open to learning new things versus a couple of the global benchmarks.
That's very interesting. I always imagine that folks in the UAE are working long hours and a substantial part of that is spent in traffic. But compared to some regions in Asia, this may be actually on the brighter side. Like you can reach anywhere in 20, 30 minutes unless you're traveling from Dubai to Sharjah or something like that. Yeah, I think it's interesting and happy to see that Cigna, which has always been, or in the last 2-3 years, they've been focused on wellness. So I think these kind of scores make a lot of sense. These kind of reports make a lot of sense. And good to see that they're looking at multiple aspects of well-being, not just one or two.
Yeah,
all in all,
absolutely. Yeah. I'm also assuming when you have insights like these where vitality is also so important from all aspects and just not physical, which is typically how it is looked at. That sort of insights gets translated into the product coverage as well. So your healthcare product coverage is not hopefully limited to just a certain aspects of physical well-being itself, and it starts to take in various aspects of well-being, and it gets covered as part of your healthcare program itself. But yeah, very interesting report to read.
Yeah, I think on that note, it'll be very interesting to see what is the sort of coverage they give for mental health consultations, things like that. And since they mentioned financial well-being, wonder if this is a similar play like we just discussed about with HAYAH. Is it something to do with helping you manage your finances and stuff like that? Will they as a result of this survey, will they do something with it? Is the question that probably you are also asking there, right?
Yeah, exactly. What can you do with this insights now is something that we are keen to know. So potentially we need to reach out to Cigna folks and get them on the podcast.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. Now going a bit beyond Middle East and to Hong Kong, and OneDegree is an Insurtech which operates out of there. So they've recently collaborated with the Dubai Insurance Company. Now we haven't seen the product yet. Maybe it's hidden somewhere on the website, but this is really to protect crypto and digital assets, right? And so it's essentially commercial crime insurance, professional indemnity, D&O insurance, and it covers the Web3 companies. And we know that Dubai is very pro Web3, and there is a virtual assets regulatory authority. So these kind of protective mechanisms can only promote that industry. And I've actually reached out to Alvin for an appearance on the podcast, Vidya. So it'll be interesting if he does. We can dive deeper into it. Yeah, and this is interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, no, very interesting. But you mentioned how this covers sort of commercial crime and D&O and professional indemnity and so on, which is very much catering to the Web3 company and the exchanges and the wallet providers. It'll be also interesting to know what are their P2C or D2C an approach to it as well. Me as an end consumer, do I get access to this insurance? Because in the instance, there is some sort of a fraud that happens and whatnot. And just on that, Renjit, I know you are pretty heavy on crypto. Have you seen this insurance pop up in any of the apps that you use?
No. So just to clarify, I'm not heavy on crypto. I have definitely keeping it. Okay. Not investment advice, but keeping it below 1% of your net worth so that if anything happens, I don't really lose my sleep. So obviously there are changes here in the UAE, BitOSs and Rain and all that. No, I haven't recently seen any messages pop up saying insure your products or insure your crypto or anything like that. So I think they are trying to operate in the back end on a B2B basis, as you mentioned. So they are protecting crypto exchanges, the Web3 digital asset custodians, the wallet providers like MetaMask and so on and so forth. And I think in the news report that we read, they said that they just have an approval rate of around 25%. So they're basically rejecting a number of applications. It looks like they're doing their due diligence and they're not approving any and all policies. So that's a good news, right? They've raised total of $85 million. So that's been a significant amount of funding that they've done. So interesting, very interesting.
Yeah. Big names in terms of investors who they have raised this money with. So yeah, it is, as you said, it's the region to be when it comes to digital assets. It's the Middle East is, and Dubai certainly is with VARA here in place. It'd be great to see how this gets into more on a mass basis where D2C customers get to use this as well.
Yeah, I think probably then approach would be to cover the businesses and the customers that get covered through that policy. So I think it might not be yet accessible to end customers, but we'll see. There's a play and hopefully we'll get the CEO to have a conversation with us. So that should be very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. So that's great. So that brings us to this very snappy short episode of News with Analysis. We loved putting this together. It was fun to go back to our flagship content. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in. And before we end, I think I picked this up recently from a podcast I'm watching. If you like listening to this, and we know there are dedicated listeners to this, you should go and subscribe on the YouTube channel and on your favorite podcast platform, because that helps us to reach more listeners. So that's the request that I want to end with before we end this episode, and look forward to catching you next time.
Awesome. Thank you.